Hello, everyone. Welcome to the North Carolina Museum of Art's virtual lecture, the Ancient American Art Collection at the NCMA. My name is Maria Lopez, and I'm the manager of film and lecture programs at the museum. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with us on this rainy and gloomy day. Before we begin with the lecture, I'd like to give everyone an overview of the agenda for today. This virtual event will last about 1 hour, but may go a little bit longer. Our lecturer, Angel Gonzalez, the GlaxoSmithKline Curatorial Research Fellow, will present, and then we will have a short Q&A session where we will share your questions with Angel. Please enter any questions using the Q&A function or the chat box. We will try our best to get through as many questions as we can. I also want to let everyone know that this conversation will be recorded and made available to all registrants. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the NC Museum of Art's GlaxoSmithKline Curatorial Research Fellow, Angel Gonzalez. Welcome, Angel.
Thank you, Maria. And thank you, everyone, to be here today in this wonderful rainy day. I'm gonna share my screen, and please let me know if it's working. Can you see it? Yes, not? Okay. First, I would like to present you this time our collection of ancient art from a tremendous, huge territory covering at least 10 countries in Mexico, uninterrupted from northern Mexico, Central America, and the Andes, Ecuador and Peru. Because this collection has a lot of potential, and in the past rarely has been on display. So we are gonna take a tour, a general tour, because it's the many societies that existed in these territories are many, and because the time it only allowed to a general overview of this. First, I would like to start with beginning with the south part, the Andes. In this slide, you are seeing two different maps from this zone area, but today we will focus on the central Andes, basically Bolivia and Peru. But first, the varied cultures of South American Andes created some of the most transcendent art the world has ever known. It will cover the related cultures that exist in the area between the capital of Ecuador, Quito, in this part, and Santiago, Chile, the capital of Chile. A territorial span that roughly 3,400 miles, ultimately ruled by the Inca Empire. We have to remember that in previous encounter with the European cultures, this area wasn't unified until Inca times. So many cultures and societies emerged in this time, but after many of them collapsed. Some of them were contemporaneous, but others completely not, because as I said, they were contemporaneous and or collapse. For example, the very famous Chavin-de-Huántar culture was not contemporaneous or living at the same time with the Incas. You know, we have to keep in mind that this area is, they share cultures and beliefs and daily practices, but mostly they're different in other aspects, in different spheres. Andean art has been preserved from at least 8,800 years BC. However, sophisticated art forms date from around 2,500 BC, beginning with roughly with Chavin-de-Huántar. But I would like to give the environmental particularities in this area in Peru. That is, one of the main features is that the contrast, the extremes. It is astonishing that humans have lived for so long in the central Andes. It contains the world's driest coastal desert, as you can see here in the slide. Its longest and second highest mountain chain, just after the Himalayas, and over 1 billion acres of Amazonian rainforest. So in this slide, I'm presenting you a sketch of these contrasting zones. Here you can see my arrow is the ocean, one of the richest ocean in the world. So you have this abrupt change. You have the mountains, but first very desertic coastal area, two kind of range of mountains, Cordillera Negra and the Cordillera Blanca that's covered with snow. So after that, you have the tropical forest of the Amazon. Because none of the three zones offers a satisfactory balance between water, altitude, and arable land, the indigenous population have had to develop social organizations in which travel, reciprocity, diversifications, and control are paramount. So one of the reasons because this area is so rich, culturally speaking, is because this exchange, this constant exchange it's a kind of symbiosis that they need the resources that they didn't have. So the exchange was necessary. But I would like you to present one of the, or two pieces that are part of a collection. These two beautiful stirrup vessels coming from a very distinctive culture. It's called Moche, the Moche cultures that existed in the central north part of Peru, today, present day Peru. So the art of Moche frequently depicts a combination of their natural and supernatural worlds. That is a combination of the other worlds that existed more than this one that we perceive as historical time. In addition, the Moche routinely portrays several scenes involving specific figures and settings, as you can see here on your right. These scenes were repeatedly painted over a long period by multiple artists and are referred to as themes. There are different themes here. Evidence from archaeological excavation tie the figures from these themes to real individuals, and several scenes can be linked in narrative sequence. These themes have been the objects of extensive scholarly study and offer an extraordinary window into the practice and ritual activities of the Moche. For example, here, I created this rollout, imagine that a 3D surface, in this case, the vessel, we can transform in a single plane. Now it's like if you open this surface and you can draw on it. So it's easily to see the scene. So I create this rollout from this vessel in our collection, coming from the Moche culture. Human anthropomorphic animals or beings are depicted running and carrying bags. This scene is called in the scientific literature ritual runners. because it is very explicit. It's depicting humans or supernatural being in this activity. It's kind of a very dynamic scene that you can see these two supernatural beings, probably a combination of human and a hawk, or hawks in this case, carrying these bags full with beans. The runners tend to wear alternating and these trapezoidal headdresses like this or here. Now you can see probably a mirror. And both figures are holding bags with beans. Beans are often depicted in the background, but we know by using ethnohistorical texts from the colonial period after the encounter with Europeans, with the Spaniards, from the Inca period, that Inca messengers who travel on foot across the entire empire know in Quechua, the Inca language, as Quechua. They know this person as Chasqui, that has been used as analogies for these early moche representations of runners. But as I mentioned, these kind of stirrup vessels have a long history. We know that start to appear roughly in the moche, in the Chavín de Huántar period, like 1500 BC. And interruptedly, it develops in different cultures, right? In Nazca, Wari, Inca cultures, but also in the colonial period. We have examples too. Here, I'm presenting different vessels from different cultures. So beginning on your left, we have a Chancay vessel. It's depicting monkeys. At the center, it's one of my favorite pieces in the collection because it's depicting a human being holding a conch shell, but if you blow in this part of the vessel, it's a whistle. It's a beautiful melody. It's like water. But in your right, you have a Nazca vessel carved on the surface, depicting probably water, a river or the ocean, because inside has fish. This vessel is Nazca, is coming from the famous cultures like Nazca lines, that everybody knows. But we have other kinds of representations in this art. Not only humans or supernatural beings, but we have these companies for humans. For example, here we have a hairless dog. No, if you watch the movie Coco, and do you remember this little dog? Well, it's similar. It's not the same. Are different dogs, but both the hairless Mexican dog and the Peruvian hairless dog are similar. So we have this animal represented here because, as we know, dogs are the most famous animal that serve as company for humans, besides cats, of course. But in the other extreme, we have another kind of animal, a frog, covered with these bumps, but also it's a vessel that probably is depicting a poisonous animal, but also in the Andes and in other areas of the world, frogs are intimately related with grain because the crock. At the center, we have we don't know what kind of animal is it, probably a monkey or a dog, but this vessel is coming from the colonial period. So as I mentioned previously, these kind of vessels, beautiful vessels, bring us a new experience of art, of the ancient art, but they have a long history in this part of the world, maybe 2000 or more years, continuously, uninterrupted. But we have other kinds of objects, precious metals in the collection. Another of my favorite pieces is this quero. It's a ceremonial drinking vessel for alcoholic beverage, chicha, or other kind of liquids that depicts one of the most recognized supernatural beings in the Sican cultures, and another in Moche and Inca too, Ayapayec. No, it's this. We have to remember that in this part of the world, in the Andes, the Central Andes is one of these areas that metallurgy develops so highly, and they develop independently. One of the most scientific qualities in techniques to create metallurgy and objects made of not only gold, silver, bronze, copper. You know, it's fantastic. And one of the current ideas is that existed connections between the Andes, the Central Andes, and Western Mexico. You know, they in Mesoamerica they copied, they imitated these metallurgy techniques. But here it's a drinking vessel, as I mentioned. It's called quero in Quechua, depicting this supernatural being with these eyes almost in the almond shape. You know, it's a human face, but you can see the teeth. It's like an aggressively expression depicted on it. But we know that it's from the Sican area, sorry, because in other kind of in another archaeological exploration in this zone, in this valley in Peru, the archaeological site is called Batan Grande. They found hundreds of these kind of objects so similar, so we can infer that or vessel or quero and these objects from Peru, from Batan Grande, are coming from the same site, probably the same group, because the similarities are so pervasive, right? And just last week, we started a chemical analysis in the museum to know if what kind of gold it has, or the combinations between copper and gold. So this analysis can tell us roughly chronology and probably an area, because in Peru they have a lot of information that we can compare to know this origin, probably origin. But also we have in other kind of objects. This is a small mask, like this size, from the Chimu cultures. It is a funerary mask made with strips of gold. It's a very tiny. The eyes, you can see the almond-shaped eyes, that's the previous one, it contains the pupil made of turquoise. It's a precious stone in this area, but covered with cinnabar. Do you see the red color on the face? Well, it's is iron, it's cinnabar. It's very toxic. If you smell it, probably you will have problems. But this mask, using the archaeological record to compare, to know, and we know that this kind of masks were found in tombs, covering precisely the face of these bodies inside these tombs. But you can see that the face is with the eyes are open. So when you find one of these objects, you are seeing the death from the eyes. Unfortunately, we don't have precise context. That is, we don't know the specific area that came from these objects. So it's necessary to track the previous owners and to recreate this link and to know from what specific area they came from. But we can compare, right? Because archaeology is basically is a comparative science. But moving forward to another kind of objects, this is a real treasure in our collection, and I'm totally fall in love with this because they are fantastic. One of the finest textiles that I ever seen in my life. Are complete. That is very important. When I was in the scholars room in the museum, seeing these objects in person, still you can smell. You can smell the llamas and guanacos. It contains smell still. It's more than 500 years that they were made and smell still. But Peruvian textiles are well known because this tradition is one of the best and finest textile traditions, not only in the Americas, probably the best in the Americas, but surely one of the best in the entire world, surely. This piece on your right is a kind of poncho, right? And the other is it's a panel. So the poncho probably was worn for a person of high status. You can see the rich iconography depicted on it. Probably this art is very abstract. Sometimes it's very confusing because it has symmetry, two or three lines of symmetry. So it's like a fold, but it's intended to confuse people sometimes. And the colors are amazing. That we don't have any of this in Mesoamerica. This kind of textiles, nothing like that. It's because the Peruvian environmental is so dry, it's like desertic. Sometimes the rain never happened in 100 years. No, so the preservation is unique in the world. When I work in Central Mexico, we have good preservation, but nothing like this. Absolutely astonishing. The colors are so vivid, and for example, this kind of red at the center is fantastic. No, and you have other kinds of colors. So the other kind is in your left. It's from Nazca culture, the famous because the lines, the geoglyphs in the desert, with this pattern imitating probably snakes, the body of snakes. You have to remember that some of these reptiles have these patterns of circles and squares on the body. But we have to remember too that these textiles were intended for exchange, produced inside the kinship, but with the purpose to exchange or to show wealthness in between groups or factions. By using ethnohistorical text from the colonial period, the post-Inca period, we know that women were the people, the persons in charge to create these beautiful objects, but doing so, they obtained wealthness and at the same time status. So we have to think that women at that moment, they have more power than we usually think to. No, women were so powerful by creating this richness and wealthness to exchange. So I'm showing you this, the rest of our collection. We have 5 textiles in the museum. So we intended to put it on display. So pretty soon you will see them on person. At the center, and the other one on the right, you are seeing panels. So these objects were not used by persons, but probably were on display on walls, as we do today. We know this because some of these textiles were found in archaeological explorations in this way, hanging on the walls. But the center one panel, you can see these practices from the past, right? You are seeing 3 persons, probably warriors, because the headdress imitates a knife, a Tumi knife is known in the archaeological literature, surrounded by supernatural beings. You see, they have 4 hands and 2 legs, but the human beings at the center are holding human heads, probably coming from warfare, captives, and so on. So we have to think that in these societies, warfare was present, and also by using archaeological records, we know that, and human remains, that we know, and it confirms that these societies, they had conflicts in the past. You know? The last one, textiles, that I'm showing here, is from the Chancay culture in the central part of Peru. It's the longest from in our collection, almost 4 meters long. It's complete, and it contains beautiful colors. Look at the pink or the blue that is very rare to find in textiles. But when you see the threads are so fine, it's marvelous. And I would like to show you a couple of details, because they are displaying flamingos, these birds that lives in the ocean or lakes. No, but I would like to highlight the pink color, because it's astonishing. And this pattern, wavy lines, probably imitating waves from the ocean, right? Yeah, these objects are made with hair of llamas, alpacas, guanacos, these camelids that live in the Andes are famous for this. So since like 2 years ago, we start this to reanalyze this collection in order to put it on display, because, but also we need to be careful with these objects, because, you know, are almost 700 years old, some of them, and they are very sensitive of light, so we cannot display them for a long period, like 6 months. It's too much, because we can damage these textiles, so we need to be very careful. So we intended to create to take periods and for display them, not to display them at the same time, but probably rotating them. So here where you are seeing what kind of analysis we are doing with experts on weaving. So they can inform us about techniques or other details that we don't know as archaeologists, because we are not familiar with this kind of materials. But we are in contact with other museums and collections for advice to have the best way to present them for you. So we're moving to the north. And right now we are in Ecuador. That is the country that is at the north of Peru. These figurines, and we have more, are coming from, or the style is called Jamacuaque. That is north part of Ecuador, present day Ecuador. So you can see here is transformation figures. Are these human beings in the attitude of changing a form? For example, on your left, you're seeing this human being transforming in probably in a powerful feline. At the center is a human being. You see do you see the human face? But it has the body covered with feathers, probably a prey bird, an eagle or an owl. And finally, on your right, it's a fragment. It's a depiction of probably a ruler. We know this because in other museums, they have complete pieces, so we can compare and we can know about what kind of representation are this. But keep in mind this figure and the mix between jaguars and humans, because we tend to see that it's pervasive in the rest of art that I will show you. No, because jaguars and pumas and other felines are so powerful and smart. So these animals were associated with rulers or high status people or powerful sorcerers or magicians. But look at the colors, are perfect. It's like a new object. So moving forward, we are entering to Central America. This area, it's the area where these two cultures never touch, but probably the place of different encounters from the tradition of the North, from Mesoamerican tradition and the Andes tradition. But in the archaeological jargon, we used to think that this area, Central America, is the area of encounters between these superpowers of that time. But it's idea that it has been, or it is rethinking and has been reevaluated, because these cultures that emerge in this area, they develop it by themselves. So in this area is covering 7 countries: Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras. It's a very rich environmental area containing rainforest, rivers, mountains, volcanoes. So we'll focus in Costa Rica. Our collection contains one of the richest collection from Costa Rica in the state so far. So I will show you some of these pieces, complete pieces that currently we intend to analyze them, looking for chemical analysis. For example, in this vessel, it contains sediment, dirt. So if we analyze this chemically, probably we will know what kind of liquid or food it contained in the past. No, this kind of analysis are standard in the archaeological sphere. But look at the iconography that is covering the vessel. It's a supernatural being, but these patterns are probably coming from the north, from central Mexico or the Maya area. In the other image, you are seeing incense burner. So in the past, these people place charcoal in this part and fire. And probably they added resins or other kind of incense to create this smoke. But by doing so, they created these connections with supernatural beings like ancestors or deities, right? But I would like to highlight the 2 felines that are in this vessel. Probably are jaguars, because these spots that also here in the face. No. So if you remember in the previous pieces from Jamacuaque in Ecuador, it's this same idea, kind of same idea. It's around the powerful, one of probably the most powerful animal on earth is the jaguar, associated in the Maya area with rulers and sorcerers. For example, from Aztec time, one of the most powerful gods, Tezcatlipoca, is associated with jaguars, because these animals, these felines, are so quiet at night. They can see at night. They're silent, no, but overall, they are super smart and they are super predators. So it's easy to create this connection between this fiercely animal, powerful, but overall they're beautiful animals. So when you burn this incense, from the smoke was emerging from these holes, so these people were creating a multi-sensorial experience, not only involving smell, sound, see, in order to create this connection with other worlds. So I'm running out of time, so this will be fast. This art is also coming from Costa Rica, depicting other kind of predators. These objects, we don't know the specific context, but by using the archaeological experience, we know that are found in commonly or usually in tombs. right? But here we're seeing other kind of predator, the most successful predator on water, that is crocodiles. You can see here it's pretty clear, a vessel. And these pikes are the scales of crocodiles, but also this incense burner too. It's supernatural being, you know. It's not only depicting this reptile as is present in the natural landscape, but also this population added all the features to create this new being, this mixed being. And finally, on your left, you're seeing probably a mammal, probably a monkey, but I love the expression of this piece. It's like a surprising of something. So my intention here is to share this new experience that our collection in the museum has, and pretty soon will be shared in the galleries. But also Costa Rica has other kind of objects, beautiful objects, complete objects, depicting in daily life, another kind of beliefs. Here on your right, you are seeing effigy made of clay, ceramic, depicting a woman covering with tattoos, probably, or painting, body painting. But I would like to highlight or put it out this detail, because she's carrying a baby, and it's a wonderful piece, transmitting this notion of motherhood in the past, that is great connection with our present, of course. At the center, we have one of our most famous pieces in our collection. It's a jaguar, again. It's this feline is present in this art. The style is called Pataki. It's well known, the area that it's come from. It's in Costa Rica, but it's covered with this iconography. It start to see like it's a new style. But if we compare this iconography with other motifs from Mesoamerica, we can see similar patterns. So we can infer, or we can think in contacts between these different societies in time. No, I would like to mention the expression, of the jaguar is showing that it's like forceful, it's powerful, and it has presence. In the other two images, is this one on top is showing us a human head, probably beheaded, decapitated. But look at the headdress. It contains two birds, probably a vulture. But also, I'm thinking that this piece is not only a vessel, but a drum. It's a musical instrument that you can play with it. Other times, like these three supports are depicting crocodiles, this powerful predator on water. But also Costa Rica arts, it's very rich in depictions of other kind of animals. Like monkeys, I love this monkey. It's so quiet and it's peaceful and joyful, because monkeys, spider monkeys in this case, are in the nature are in this way. You know, they're always playing or making jokes. Other times, again, it's presenting the human head, probably decapitated, and finally a turkey. But look at the color and the texture. You know, it's pretty rich. I'm gonna run on this section because I'm running out of time. But also we have a good amount of pieces made of gold. This area, Costa Rica, it's famous because they produce many images made of this metal. No. Also, where are depicting these same narratives, these same ideas of powerful beings, or created on these beautiful objects, in this support made of shiny metal, has powerful, associated with power, political power, religious power. Here, this piece is a tiny pectoral. It's depicting a supernatural human being with 2 heads and adorned with crocodile's heads. At the center also is a crocodile probably. And the right one is depicting a musician playing flutes and rattles. So it's transmitting this art, is transmitting this notion of joyful, also it's transmitting that connect with us, that we enjoy the life as the population in the past. No? Here we're seeing new narratives, like depicting other kind of predator, like birds, probably, and harpy eagle at the center, but also a mix of crocodiles and human beings, as in previous pieces. And also here too, it's a supernatural being, human being, a mix of human and combination with other elements. So we were seeing precious objects made of gold, but Costa Rica, and particularly in our collection, is rich in other kind of precious materials, as jade or jadeite, greenstone object cells, we know in the archaeological jargon, because its intrinsic features, this kind of rocks, jadeite, greenstone, produce certain features, as I mentioned. So these cells, when you hit them, they produce a metallic sound, almost like a raindrop. But we know from Mesoamerica beliefs that these objects are imitating corn, because these societies were basically agricultural, depicting supernatural beings. This is a combination of snakes, you see here at the mouth, but also birds, predators, probably eagles. So finally, our last stop will be Mesoamerica. Probably many of you know some of these cultures. Mesoamerica means between the Americas, because it's this geographical area between North and South America. So we can compare Mesoamerica with the Andes, the Central Andes, because it's like Mesoamerica is a concept that encompasses a general culture. They share culture, they share beliefs, they share in the past food, practices, and so on. But each one had particularities. So when we are speaking of Maya, we have to remember that they were different from Olmecs or Aztecs or Mixtecs, but in general, they share certain cultures and daily practices. First, I would like to continue this idea of precious materials in our collection. Here, I'm showing you 3 different jadeite objects coming from probably from the Gulf Coast of Mexico, from Olmec area, but others are coming from the Pacific coast of Guerrero, probably. It's called the Mezcala style. This piece is probably depicting an Olmec maize god. You see this headdress on top of the piece are depicting the maize. At the center, it's a very abstract effigy. It's almost a human image, but with the face is almost raised. It's a beautiful surface, and the color is wonderful. As I mentioned, we know that from the Maya or the Aztec societies, this material was so desired because they believed that jade contained moisture, humidity. So basically, when you have one of these objects in your possession, you're holding rain. They believe that these objects were cold, and they can bring prosperity and corn, basically by invoking rain. Also, this piece on your right, it's from Guerrero, the Guerrero state, from the Mezcala style. It's this style is almost present in pre-Columbian collections, but unfortunately we don't know many of these culture from the archaeological record, because many of these objects are looted. So we know, comparing from different collections, that certain chronologies, certain formalities, certain iconographic features shared by this style. So other part of the collection is from the Maya area and Campeche. So Yucatan states, Chiapas, Campeche, as I mentioned, part of Tabasco, Guatemala, were entering in this area. No, here at the center, you're seeing a Jaina figurine from Campeche, depicting this daily life of a beautiful woman taking care of an old person. But also, this piece is a whistle. You can play with it. Other times are these artists depicting other kind of animals. Turkey, in this case. Can you see these bumps on the head and the neck? It's pretty common on turkeys. It's from the Maya area. Also, this bird. This piece is also from the Maya area, probably from Chiapas. Other times are these artists depicting the different stage of the human life. Not only Maya people were depicting youthful people like this, in this case, this beautiful woman, but also old person. Probably this is a vessel too, this one, and probably an old god of fire. We know that from the Aztec text that it's called Huehueteotl in Aztec language. So here I'm showing you two objects from the Maya area and one from the Gulf Coast, the Huastecs or Totonacs. These two on the extremes are depicting polychrome vessels, beautiful, probably both coming from Guatemala, probably from Petén, the Petén area. Depicting a ruler here. This glyph is the Hau glyph. And the other is a vessel, probably from a tomb. We know because by using the literature, the scientific literature, depicting a jaguar on top of the head. Again, it's present, this powerful predator. But we know by using depictions on vessels that these subjects were placed on tombs containing food for the afterlife. Other times, these three pieces from our collection are depicting the wealthiness of high status people. Here is showing you probably a ruler sitting on this couch covered with jaguar pelts. Other times, this art is depicting supernatural beings. Here's the rain god, Chak. Now you can see here the eyes and the mouth that is spitting out rain. Here are the drops. Other times are depicting ritual ceremonies, probably for deceased people. Here, again, this is a rollout from this piece, is depicting a ritual, probably a mortuary bundle at the center, no? And these two people depicted two times are the same beings, are dancing around this glyph. But this series of glyphs are telling us that this scene is happening at night, because these glyphs means Akbal, Wakan, or night in Maya language. Other times, these subjects are transmitting this notion of what is beyond death, what is in the afterlife. Here, this piece is from the Gulf Coast of Veracruz, in the north part of Mexico, depicting a woman who died in the first childbirth. In Nahuatl, the Aztec language, they call them Cihuateotl in singular, or Cihuateteo in plural. That means this woman who died in the first childbirth, they served as company of the sun every day from the midday to the sunset. They were chanting. This realm of was thought that it's a paradisiacal realm, full with music, with beautiful birds, butterflies, smells, and so on. Also, this piece at the center, also an incense burner from Guatemala, but imitating Teotihuacan from central Mexico archaeological sites, is depicting this same idea of what is happening in the afterlife. Here, we are seeing probably a warrior it's like in a mortuary bundle, ready to be born, because doing so, these people, when you burn people in this way, they have access to this realm, to the sun, and serve as the sun company. But they were playing, they were dancing, they were chanting. So it was a joyful realm. And finally, and the last part of this conversation is related to the ball game, because we have pieces that tell us about this sport. What's a kind of sport? What's a mix of sport and ritual? So these pictures, I'm showing you a ball game court from central Mexico. In the other image is a plain view from the same court, but from the Aztec time. This kind of sport was present from almost 3,000 years and still is played in Western Mexico. So the main idea was that two teams play between 2 and 3 people for every team. They play with a ball made of rubber, kind of heavy. So the intention was to pass this ball into these two rings between these. And metaphorically, the ball game was intended to recreate this pattern of day and night, the fight between sun and moon, and light and dark. So when one of these teams were defeated, probably they were decapitated. So human heads are commonly seen on this iconography. These two pieces here from our collection are depicting two different aspects of the ball game. This is part of the attires of the players, and coming from Veracruz, and the other is a marker from a ball game. So here I'm showing you a drawing of the court, ball game court. So the two teams play here in this area, and these markers probably were placed in this area or here over the platforms. Here we're seeing a ball game player inside. This glyph, it means the moon, and probably this person is holding a human head and a rubber ball here. In this scene, coming from a rollout from a Maya vessel, it's a clear depiction of what happened in the past. So we are seeing a frontal view. Here you have the platform where people were placed. It's like a stadium, you know, and the two teams were playing this here in this area. So we are seeing the two groups facing each other, and this is the ball, no? And the scene is covered with glyphs and sounds. These lines, wavy lines, means sound, like they were chanting or they were speaking or they intend to create sound. Here another depiction of from Tonina, an archaeological site in Chiapas in Mexico, are depicting this the same idea, the same ball game. We're facing two rulers or two ball game players, but I would like to highlight the equipment that they're wearing. Here is the joke that is the same as this, and this is the ball, the rubber ball, and look at the headdresses and all the equipment. So the rule is for this game is you can play with your elbows, knees, hips, and so on, but never touch it with your hands. Never is forbidden. And finally, in our collection, we have a very fine pieces from West Mexico. These pieces are like 2,200 years old, more or less, you know, coming from this present day Mexican states of Colima, probably Michoacán, Nayarit, Jalisco. No, but they are wonderful pieces with these brilliant colors, shiny materials. No, but depicting again this part of the population that live in the past. These figures, not this, but similar pieces are reported from coming from tombs. They serve as guardians at the entrance of these tombs. No, we have women that she's holding a vessel, probably contain pulque. this alcoholic beverage made of agave, maguey cactus. No, so women in the past were transforming materials. They were so creative. Other times, this effigies showing you pregnant women, but look at the face, it's so powerful, the expression. And again, we are seeing here a warrior, you know, he's holding two weapons, two spears, or maybe a mace on the right hand, you know, completely covered with probably tattoos or facial body painting. No, but you can see the range of activities acted in the past in this part of the collection. But other times are depicting supernatural activities, ritual, like this acrobat effigy, and also animals and plants. Here we have a parakeet or a macaw probably, and a hairless dog, Choles Quintly here. So we have to remember that these dogs were company in this life and beyond, in the afterlife, because in indigenous beliefs, when you die, when a person dies, they start a journey to the underworld, to the Mictlan in the Aztec times. But in order to do so, they had to cross a huge river. So this person needed a dog to cross this river. And I think that's all.
Okay, yeah, we got a couple of questions, Angel, so I'll go ahead and share some of them with you if you're ready. Okay, so we had Kathy Brook ask, from which culture was the whistle vessel?
Which one?
I'm not sure. She didn't specify, but she asked this pretty early on.
Okay, we have from the probably from Peru, the vessel, moche. Yeah, kinda. It's from Salinar culture. It's kind of contemporaneous to moche culture. Roughly like 200 to 600 BC. It's from Peru, yeah. And we have X-ray from this piece, the black one, the vessel, and it contains a very complicated mechanism inside. It needed a lot of skills to create it, but it creates a wonderful sound, like a whistle.
And we also had Jane Robbins ask if all of the art pieces that you showed in your presentation are in our museum.
Mostly. Yeah, it's the intention for this presentation is to share this new experience, because previously in the past, these pieces were stored in our museums and rarely has been on display. So with Caroline Rocheleau and I, we are working to change this situation and to bring and to share this wonderful experience of ancient American art. But for the future, we are planning to share many of these objects in the galleries.
And Deidre asked, while you were doing your metallurgical analysis, she just was assuming that the vessel that the NCMA owns was not found in situ. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, that's true. The kettle, the vessel, made of an alloy made of gold and copper, is not coming from the archaeological record. It's true. Was a donation to our museum in like several years ago, but we don't know the specificities of the record or the previous owners. But we can compare with other collections, not only in the United States, but also with other collections in Peru. That's why I put this slide from this excavation, that they found hundreds of vessels so similar. So the archaeologists are thinking that for style, comparing for style, they are coming from this same period, from this same area. So we can think that we can do the same. We can infer, but surely we don't know. That's true.
And we also had Carol Ann asking, who would get a funerary mask?
Well, what kind of person can have these objects? I think that's an interesting question that we as archaeologists, we used to think about. Well, the idea is that high status people were the only one to have access to this object, these precious metals, no, like elite leaders or rulers, no, because again, using the archaeological context, previous explorations, we know that these rich tombs, like the Lord of Zipan, El Señor de Zipan, was one of this wonderful tomb covered with hundreds of these pieces at different human beings that were sacrificed for this ceremony, for this funeral ceremony. So we have to think that what kind of people had access to these resources in the past. So we can infer that only the high status people.
Thank you, Angel. We also got a question from Tina, who says, I assume the coloring is from plants and veggies. If so, which ones? And I think she's assuming to the textiles. So if you can comment on how they got that coloring for the textiles.
Yeah. So with these textiles are made of different materials, not only llamas or alpacas, but also cotton. We know that Mesoamerican cultures and Andean cultures, they domesticated these plants in the past. In Mesoamerica, we have this kind of cotton, the white one, but in the Andes it's more diverse. There are different colors of cotton. But also they used alpaca, llama, these camelids, and they change the color of the hairs. So yeah, we know by ethnographic analogies, people living today in these areas, that they use different materials, conch shells from the ocean, minerals, plants, and so on. So it's a unique tradition in the world. I think in the Andes, especially in Peru, they develop almost all the techniques for textiles in the world. So in this single space, they were so creative, almost like the rest of the world. So including coloring materials. But all other times, they painted directly. When they finished the pieces, they painted it directly on the surface.
And I also have two more questions on the textiles. One is from Jennifer Albright, and she wants to know if the textiles were woven on small looms and then the panels were stitched together to create this big one. And Jane wants to know if the textiles were made from wool of llamas, guanacos, etc.
Yeah, the first one, the second one. Yeah, we know that by using microscopic analysis, we can we know that kind of what kind of hair they use. So llamas, when you see in the microscope, they have certain features, colors and diameter and so on. So yeah, basically we're alpaca, llamas, guanacos, but it's a combination with cotton. Other times about the techniques, yeah, they employ this this artifact to create the textiles, but they combine several techniques, several technological issues by tying together different pieces, right? But other times it's a single piece. You start when you start a piece and you finish it completely, and you never add other fragments. That is to me, it's like blow my mind.
And the last question we have is from Kathy, and she wants to know if the ball players wore stone yolks.
If they were using the stone yolks, the real?
Yes.
Good question. I forgot to mention that the piece that I show you is made of greenstone. Yes, but it's imitating, is recreating an attire used by ball game players made of different material, probably leather or wood, because when you are playing when you're playing with the ball is made of rubber and it's so heavy, almost like 2 or 3 pounds, and when it hits you, your body, it hurts a lot. You have to have protection to play this. So jokes were intended to use on your hip to protect your body, but also other kind of protections on your elbows or in your knees. But yeah, that's right. It's the piece that I show you, it's an effigy. It's representing this equipment.
Yeah, and I think that was our last question, but we are getting a lot of comments in the chat saying how wonderful it'll be to see these in person. And thank you for the presentation. So yeah, I think this concludes our little lunchtime lecture. Thank you so much for joining us. And I'm sorry if we went on a little longer than expected, but I'm sure you were all as enthralled in Angel's presentation as I was. Thank you, Angel, for this very fascinating lecture and insight into our collection. We hope you all enjoyed the lecture and look forward to having you at our upcoming virtual events. We also want to remind you that the North Carolina Museum of Art is open. So if you want to visit our collection, you can do so, but please note the museum's new hours and safety measures on the NCMA website at ncartmuseum.org. And I just want to say that we appreciate your support of our programs. And if you would like to continue to support the NC Museum of Art, we ask you to consider becoming a member of the museum or making a donation to the NCMA Arts Fund. And if you're interested in becoming a member, would like to make a donation, you can do that on our website. Thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.